Hurricane Irma strengthens into Category 5 storm. Miami, the U.S. National Hurricane Center said Tuesday morning that Hurricane Irma has strengthened into a Category 5 storm as it approaches Florida and the Northeast Caribbean. The powerful hurricane, which was centered 320 miles east of the Leeward Islands early Tuesday, has maximum sustained winds of 175 miles per hour and is moving westward at 14 miles per hour. Channel 9 meteorologist Brian Shields said the system is the strongest storm in the Atlantic Basin since Hurricane Felix in 2007. Shields said preparations should be made because hurricane conditions are possible this weekend in South Florida and the Florida Keys. Irma is a buzzsaw, Shields said. Hurricanes don't often look more powerful and symmetric than this. Shields said Central Florida could experience Irma's effects on Sunday and on Monday, but he warned that conditions could change because the storm is 1,500 miles away. "We need another day to fine-tune the track, and then we will know more," he said. In Central Florida, you should have your hurricane kit and plans ready, but hang tight one more day. Lots has changed, and a lot more will. Florida Gov. Rick Scott on Monday declared a state of emergency in all of the state's 67 counties in advance of the hurricane. Scott said he issued the order to ensure governments have ample time, resources and flexibility to get prepared for the storm. The state of emergency allows emergency management officials to act swiftly without the burden of red tape, Scott said. States of emergency were also declared in Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. People on various Caribbean islands boarded up homes and rushed to find last-minute supplies. Officials across the northeastern Caribbean have canceled flights, shuttered schools and have urged people to hunker down as the storm barrels toward the region. Emergency officials there warned that Irma could dump up to 10 inches of rain, unleash landslides and dangerous flash floods and generate waves of up to 23 feet as the storm draws closer. Hurricane warnings have been issued for Antigua and Barbuda, Anguilla, Montserrat, St. Kitts and Nevis, Saba, St. Eustatius, St. Martin, St. Martin, St. Barts, the British and the U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, Vix and Cuba. A hurricane watch is in effect for Guadeloupe, and a tropical storm warning has been issued for Dominica. Hurricane Irma has strengthened into an extremely dangerous Category 5 storm, the National Hurricane Center said, threatening to slam into northeastern Caribbean islands and Puerto Rico by Wednesday before possibly taking aim at the U.S. mainland. Irma was churning Tuesday morning in the Atlantic about 270 miles east of Antigua and Barbuda, heading west with maximum sustained winds of 175 miles per hour, well above the 157 miles per hour threshold for a Category 5, the Hurricane Center said. The storm's forecast track currently has it near or over Antigua and Barbuda by late Tuesday or early Wednesday, and the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico on Wednesday afternoon. Some fluctuations in intensity are likely during the next day or two, but Irma is forecast to remain a powerful Category 4 or 5 hurricane during the next couple of days, the center said. It is still too early to tell the exact impact Irma will have on the United States. Computer models show the system eventually heading toward Cuba and possibly turning north toward Florida by the weekend. While Irma's exact path is uncertain, several islands in the Caribbean as well as Florida are bracing for the storm. After declaring a state of emergency all across Florida, Gov. Rick Scott said President Donald Trump had offered the full resources of the federal government as Floridians prepare for Hurricane Irma. In Florida, we always prepare for the worst and hope for the best, and while the exact path of Irma is not absolutely known at this time, we cannot afford to not be prepared, Scott said in a statement. Puerto Rico, hundreds of people rushed to the stores, emptying shelves of food and drinking water just as Puerto Rico Gov. Ricardo Rossello declared a state of emergency and activated the National Guard on Monday. For hours, people also lined up outside hardware stores hoping to get plywood, batteries and power generators. If Irma knocks out power, Puerto Ricans said they are worried it would take weeks or months before the power is restored. Power, is something absolutely necessary, especially due to Puerto Rico's weather. We need to have the AC or fan on all night, a woman told CNN affiliate WABA. Last month, the director of Puerto Rico's power utility, Ricardo Ramos Rodriguez, said several factors have made the island's electric system vulnerable and fragile. WAPA reported. One of those factors is the shortage of employees. Many workers recently retired or left their jobs for better prospects in the U.S. mainland, Ramos Rodriguez said. Public schools and officials at the University of Puerto Rico campuses have canceled classes, and many businesses remain closed. Puerto Rico and a string of Caribbean islands are under hurricane warnings, including Antigua and Barbuda, the British and U.S. Virgin Islands, Anguilla, Montserrat, St. Kitts, Nevis, Saba, St. Eustatius, St. Martin, St. Martin, and St. Barts, the Hurricane Center said. The warnings are usually issued to areas that are expected to eventually experience hurricane-force winds, at least 74 miles per hour, with the expectation that they would get tropical storm-force winds of at least 39 miles per hour about 36 hours after the alert goes into effect. Make a U-turn and die in the ocean, Irma. The Caribbean islands don't need more problems. Twitter user MutuTropical wrote about the storm. Hurricane Irma has intensified to an extremely dangerous Category 5 storm, packing winds of 175 miles per hour. Islands in the Caribbean are bracing for potentially life-threatening winds, storm surge, and rain within the next 24 hours. Irma's longer-term path remains uncertain, but the latest forecast models are increasingly putting the storm on track to hit southern Florida. Florida Governor Rick Scott declared a preemptive state of emergency on Monday afternoon as Hurricane Irma gained strength in the Atlantic and appeared likely to strike the state this weekend. Irma is forecast to hit the Leeward Islands by Tuesday, Puerto Rico by Wednesday, and possibly the U.S. East Coast a few days later, as the massive cleanup from Hurricane Harvey continues in Texas. According to the National Hurricane Center's latest bulletin, the storm is moving west at about 14 miles per hour with maximum wind speeds of 175 miles per hour, with some higher gusts. It is expected to continue on a west-northwest track, and looks to be on a collision course with population centers in the Caribbean. In most immediate danger are the Leeward Islands, the northern section of the Lesser Antilles chain. Hurricane warnings have been posted for Antigua, Barbuda, Anguilla, Montserrat, St. Kitts, and Nevis, among other islands. Puerto Rico is under a hurricane watch. The territory's governor, Ricardo Roslo, declared a state of emergency on Monday. Irma will likely maintain its strength in over the warm Caribbean water before it makes landfall, and not lose much, if any, of its power afterward. Irma will likely veer toward Turks and Caicos, Cuba, and the Bahamas after it blows through Puerto Rico. But beyond a 5-day outlook, the storm's track is less clear. Though Irma continued to shift south and west over Labor Day weekend, ominous trends for the U.S. mainland, it may still curve out to sea eventually, though that possibility is looking less probable by the hour. Florida appears to be the most likely state to sustain a hit, or at least feel some effects, from Irma, which will still likely be a Category 4 or 5 by the time it nears the peninsula. Officials there are wasting no time in warning residents. If Irma did hit Florida at its current strength, it would be the state's most powerful hurricane since Category 5 Andrew in 1992. Which cost $26.5 billion in damage and left 65 people dead. At the time, it was the costliest hurricane in U.S. history. Better safe than sorry. By the weekend, it's possible that Irma could start heading to eastern Florida and also farther up the east coast, CNN meteorologist and weather anchor Pedram Javahari said. Everyone wants to see this at least meander away from the United States. The strength, the positioning, the timing of that trough's coming into the eastern coastline will dictate exactly where Irma ends up, Javahari said. In Miami, supermarkets are already selling out on water and non-perishable food. People are trying to beat the rush in case Irma makes landfall. I've been through hurricanes and they're like, oh, it's going to hit right here, and then it hits 30, 40 miles up the coast and it kind of changes the way everything goes. So better safe than sorry, Greg Andrews told CNN affiliate WPLG. Why Irma could be especially intense. Irma is a classic Cape Verde hurricane, meaning it formed in the far eastern Atlantic, near the Cape Verde Islands, now known as the Cabo Verde Islands, before tracking all the way across the Atlantic, CNN meteorologist Brandon Miller said, and Cape Verde storms frequently become some of the largest and most intense. Irma is a classic Cape Verde hurricane, meaning it formed in the far eastern Atlantic, near the Cape Verde Islands, now known as the Cabo Verde Islands, before tracking all the way across the Atlantic. CNN meteorologist Brandon Miller said, and Cape Verde storms frequently become some of the largest and most intense hurricanes. Examples include Hurricane Hugo, Hurricane Floyd and